Hey everybody, we're back. Day number 2 of the Kickstarter. Super excited. We've unlocked stretch goals. Actually, let me double check. We were super close to unlocking stretch goal number 3. But either way, that update should be coming soon. I know Hannah was working on it first thing this morning. If it already hasn't been posted in the time that we came in here to set up, I haven't been able to look. I've been answering questions on the Kickstarter page as well, so if you are wanting to know any information outside of hanging out in a stream, yeah, so she's working on the updates right now. If there's anything else that you may want to ask and you're not in the Discord or anything like that, just drop them there. So, but beyond that, we're super excited. Yeah, so we're at 54,700. So we're only a couple backers away from hitting 55 for the next stretch goal. Super, super exciting. And yeah, today we had said we were going to do some contrast style application. I have a gigantic mini to work on. It is from the Dungeon Delvers Kickstarter from back in the day. It's a big wood dragon. So I think we're going to essentially try and paint one half of him. Because of the size, I don't think I could do the whole thing at once, but I'm going to do section by section, like how I would sort of tackle the different parts of the dragon itself. So, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It should be pretty simple. A lot of wood, a lot of feathers, a lot of leaves, and then there's some feathers on some birds that are hanging out on his back, and some rocks. That's pretty much it. So, big shout out to everybody in the chat that may be here already. And yeah, we can just sort of go ahead and get started. So if you want to go to the top down, and of course if you have any questions, throw them at Spencer and he will relay them to me. But you can see this guy is huge, big old wooded forest dragon here, and his whole body is made out of wood, so we're going to be rocking and rolling on that. He is primed white completely. Looks like there's like a little piece of schmutz, there we go, that got caught in there from the primer. But white primer, nothing fancy. This is a Badger white primer out of an airbrush, so any kind of white primer would work for you without issue. And I'm going to go ahead and start figuring out what we're going to do for maybe like his arms. So like the bicep area and the forearm, and then we'll do like a separate wood color maybe for the elbows and the feet. How about that? So I'm going to use our orange 0 here. Get some of that on the palette. Do we have anybody hanging out with us already this morning?
Haley Snaley.
Haley Snaley's here already. What's up?
Carl.
Carl here, of course. Carl, the genius.
The classics.
The classic people. Always down to hang.
Haley was asking when we get to see the unlocks.
We are waiting on Hannah. So whenever that happens, she is here. I know she was working on it, so we will have those as soon as possible. It's not something I control. Otherwise, I would have had it done for you at, 1 in the morning, no, whatever. Obviously, this morning is when you guys will have it. So, okay. So I took orange 4. I like this as a lighter base for wood because you can shift it around. It's a very warm tone color. You can see how much I'm mixing right here in general to get a good mix. Now, I'm going to test it on... this is kind of a make or break situation, right? You throw it on and it works or it doesn't. So I'll go ahead and put it on this arm right here. And this looks like it'll work great, actually. So what I like to do is just make sure I'm applying it heavily. And you can see how much I'm applying. I try and make sure there's even surface tension, meaning I don't want it to pool a lot. And yeah, I mean, this is a really nice, relaxing way to paint, I would say. Before, I was never really a fan of priming in white, but there have been a few paint jobs that we've done where I knew I wanted to do this style of application for the base coat. Usually, I like working on top of a zenithal, or, if you don't do a zenithal, similar to kind of like a slap chop, and then I'll do my base coat with paint in a similar consistency, just not as much. And then you just do your traditional layering on top. But today we're going to try and work our way down. And we'll see what we can get.
Carl was wondering, when backing the paints, is it possible to back one set of hues and then upgrade to the full set in the Pledge Manager?
So I think that is a Hannah question for sure, because I know that like we're not doing. I think you should be able to change something before everything is locked in. I think you will have the opportunity to do that. But because we're not doing a traditional pledge manager in terms of like people being able to come in and then like add stuff at the end, I think it's more of like a confirmation because of how fast the turnaround is on this campaign. So it isn't a traditional like, okay, this is going to be open for a month and then this is this and this is that. But I'm not entirely sure. I know that we've never done a fast campaign like this, so we may figure out a better solution. But I know that it will be different than the others. Is the best answer I can give you. So I only know as much as I've figured out while sitting in on meetings. So, but I know that that was sort of what we discussed when I asked her, like, hey, so what about a pledge manager? Like, can people pledge at $1 and do this and do that? And she was like, well, I'm not sure yet, just because if we're trying to lock it in and then send the funds immediately to have the stuff produced, which is what has to happen, we can't really give people a bunch of time outside of whatever. But that also then means that you could put in like a regular order or something afterwards if we know what our first order would look like. So you can see that is my first base coat. I'm gonna go ahead and do, and I'm leaving like his elbow and foot. I'm gonna do the same thing over here on the other leg. But good question. One that we have discussed. I just don't know where we landed with that. Unfortunately for you, sorry.
Amma Voodoo asks, with the strong opacity of the paint, does a zenithal highlight work well, or would a white prime be better? Thinking of slap chop style glazing.
So slap chop style glazing, you would want to go brighter with your dry brush. But all of the paint jobs that you see, other than the Death Guard minis on the actual Kickstarter, are all on zenithal application. But of course, I would do a base coat and then do traditional layering and glazing on top. So it definitely works great. Spencer can tell you too. That's literally how we paint with them every day. But yeah, if you're specifically going to do slap chop, I would just recommend going brighter, and then that way you can use sort of the same effect I have right now, and then you can highlight a little bit on top if that's what you want. So I don't really slap chop because I like going back on top of any kind of primer application. So, but it'll work for you. I also was saying, I think next week we're going to try and have Will come on stream and paint a slap chopped Rivenstone mini. So that'll be a good example whenever we can do that for you guys, because I know that's how he prefers to paint. So
then the key with this, you can learn from my mistakes, is I would get baited originally with not putting as much, loading my brush, and I would paint with too little paint.
yeah,
And I feel like right now watching you using the appropriate amount, this is a good lesson. We're getting nice, smooth, even coverage.
yeah, you really have to apply quite a bit in order to get like the really nice contrast effect. But you can also tell it's not a ton, right? So I mean, this is a gigantic miniature, and I mixed a good amount here on the palette. But yeah, it's all about applying enough to where gravity will be able to do the work, and then it will dry on its own. I didn't know if we'd have to use the hair dryer today or not. It's sort of hot under these lights in general. We don't have the AC on, and I think because of how much I'm having to apply in different areas, it'll dry and be nice to us. And I'll just continue working my way down on the mini in terms of like light and shadow, and yeah, I think it's pretty evident how it works. But this was the exact method that I did painting those Death Guard minis, the GW Nurgle guys. It's the graphic that says like great for speed paint effects or whatever, if you were wondering. So I'm only going to go for one side of this as well, just for viewability's sake. I'm not going to keep rotating this thing around. So
you painted those Death Guards super fast too.
yeah, so those 3 Death Guard minis were probably a total of like 3 hours, and it's because I also didn't use a hair dryer at all for any of it. I just literally let gravity and time do all the work for me. So was not concerned with super speed, but still obviously very fast.
Someone asked what model this is.
So yeah, this is a wood dragon from our first Kickstarter Dungeon Delvers. It never has made it to retail. It's actually done in polystone resin because it's so big. Everything else from Dungeon Delvers was done in CeoCast, except a couple things because of their size, and this was one of them. It is just so big that had to be done in a different material. So it is very heavy. I'm going to have a workout by the end of the day because polystone is a really heavy resin. It's not like traditional miniature resin that you may be used to.
It's a good workout.
It's a nice little workout. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Let me know if the volume's okay and everything too. I think we resolved that issue yesterday, but if anything weird's going on, always feel free to let us know. We'll try and fix it.
Dragon01 asked, he just backed the Kickstarter, but he has not taken part in the Patreon. Will the tutorials be done using your brand of paints?
Yeah, so since February, all of the tutorials on Patreon have been using our paints. We've had these paints since like before Christmas of last year, and not the full complete like final tester bottles, but we had very, very close. And so anything we've been painting, we've been putting out, or anything you may have seen has been done with the paints. And then all of the stuff on the Patreon is in fact done with that. So since the relaunch of the Patreon with the physical miniatures that get shipped, yeah, it's all using our paint. So the only difference is the names have changed slightly, but if you know our paint, you should be able to figure it out on older tutorials pretty easily. Do you want to mute me real quick, Spencer? I'm going to hit it with the blow dryer. Okay, I just wanted to hit the belly because it's going to get on my hands. Obviously, you can see I got it on my thumb there. But all right, so now for the other part of the wood, I want to use a lighter color. So I'm probably going to grab our tan. I swear I pulled it out.
I need to go hunt.
Am I randomly miss? Oh, it's right in front of me. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm using tan. Haha, there you go. The color we used before was orange 0. You can see that here. I'm going to drop it directly onto where I had the orange 0, so it's a little bit darker. Probably do a slight mix of the two, add a little bit more. Oop. I just yanked my cap off. That was funny. I didn't properly unseal these, and so some give me trouble because I was a little rambunctious when we first used them. Okay, so I'm going to mix the two. And this will just be a lighter, this is like a really nice skin tone, but this is just going to be a lighter wood color, kind of like the inside of a tree. I'm hoping it'll just read something like that. I'm going to mix it a little bit thinner, but pretty much the same amount mix that I had last time. And let's test it on a foot. Let's see if I did my guessing correctly. And yeah, that'll work great. Perfect. Maybe a little bit thinner, more water. There we go. Applied heavily. Perfect. Do it on the little elbow here. Kneecap. This back claw. But I hope you all having a good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. Still morning here. Could be lunchtime if you're Central or West or East Coast. Let us know if this stream time works better for you guys too. We used to do it 2 hours later typically, and I always felt we should be doing it in the morning here because more people can watch if you are at work or having lunch. So okay, so applying the secondary wood color there looks nice. throw it up top here in the center of his little volcano portion. Even though it's not a volcano, we know that, but... And then we'll do the shoulder and the face and everything this color as well. I feel like I want to add a bit more detail to the face, so a lighter color will help me do that. Again, just white primer. You could use gray if you wanted to do something like this and then build back on top with traditional layering. I think that would give you pretty solid tones to work from to begin with. I just went back and added water directly to the mini, and now I'm adding the paint. That just allows me a little bit more workability in terms of pushing it around. You can see I'm not just globbing more and more paint on though. I typically move all of the paint around a bunch as I'm doing this, and then I'll go back and add more paint to prevent flooding too much, pooling, stuff like that. The paints are really great too because the way that the pigment settles because of how much is mixed and how, well, the amount of the pigment and the grind, you don't get as much tea staining as you get from other contrast applications. Of course, you do have to apply the correct amount. If you're applying too little, if you watch the Tabletop Time review video on the Kickstarter page, when he was attempting it, he was applying way too little, and then at the end of his experiment, he applied more, and he was like, oh, I should have been putting more, right? And that's kind of the trick. You just apply more than you typically would think you need, and then you'll get a good result, just like this. You won't get tea staining, anything like that. Trying to make sure I'm not going to grab anything that is overly wet here. This is just such a big mini. I know I'm doing this side too, but I'm just trying to make sure I'm using all the paint that I've mixed. I might go back and do the underside of the other. I don't know. I don't know what we're doing. We're just hanging out. There's no plan here. Okay, but I think that is workable for us. So as long as I'm not gonna like get my hands covered in the paint here, I think we can start playing around with the foliage while all of that stuff dries for sure, and then we can go back in and add more applications to render stuff out even further, which is always fun. That's kind of the stage that I like, when you go in and you start sculpting stuff even more and more and more. So let's do really bright green leaves, because I feel like that will just be the most obvious to look at. We could also do like fall leaves or something, but we're going for bright, so we'll stick with bright. I'm going to use green number 4 as the first application. It's going to be almost like a neon green. Probably need a little bit more. There you go. Probably 3 drops worth of the paint. And some people have been wondering too, like, everyone has very different tastes when it comes to what they consider thick or thin paint. Just so you guys can see, because I know that some people had mentioned like, oh yeah, your paint is too thin for some people's taste, whatever. Here it is out of the bottle, and it's not thin. So I'm not sure. I will just say that. Like, I've been confused by that feedback, and it hasn't been the majority of the feedback from anyone. You can see it is pretty much like all other paint. So you can see it literally clumps up. Like, this paint isn't very thin. So haven't really had the chance to kind of address that yet. Oh look, I'm getting paint on the table here. 1 second. But yeah, I'm a little bit confused by that. But it definitely is not thin. I think Spencer would also agree that it's pretty much normal.
I like the consistency.
Yeah, there's nothing necessarily pre-thinned about it. It is pretty much the same as Reaper paint, as Vallejo, as all of those brands. So if you're not a fan of the majority of paints because of the consistency, then I would see where you're coming from. But okay, so I'm going to take our water here, mix it in, just like we did on the other ones. Probably add a little bit more. I want these leaves to be really vibrant, and then we'll just work our way down with additional application. So this should be enough. Let's see. Let's just start right here. Yep, that'll be great. This is going to be crazy bright, so bear with me.
Someone asked, how does the paint do with wet blending?
Perfectly fine. Nothing weird about it. It actually retains more of the pigment with the wet blending, so like you're able to get higher jumps of contrast between whatever 2 colors you're mixing. So works really, really well. If you're somebody that does like wet blending for power swords, non-metallic metal effects, things like that, you're going to be very pleased with the paint. And again, you can see I'm not going back and adding more and more and more. I just continue to push and pull around the paint so that I'm getting it into all the crevices, staining or tinting the leaves above. How is this showing up on camera? It looks really bright on my preview, so.
Yeah, it's high value stuff right here.
Okay. Like, can you see the leaves at all?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. I just didn't know. It's hard to tell because this color's so bright. This is like, even though it's not a fluorescent, it is the super brightest green that we have, so. Yeah, we were trying to figure out how to show off the fluorescence on camera, or like video camera, and it's just super difficult to do because you have to have everything else so dark in order for them to show up correctly. Like yesterday, as I was continuing work on the Reuben bust, I did his eyes with our fluorescent magenta, and it was so bright. It was crazy. It looked like they had LEDs in them, and I was like, I don't know how this is going to photograph necessarily, so.
The Pethis asks, will the colors have the same finish, and are there any plans for different finishes?
Yeah, so they all have, there's matte medium mixed in as just a part of the manufacturing process. Because of the different types of pigment we have and the amount of pigment in each color, some are a semi-satin. So I wouldn't say that they're like a satin finish necessarily. Depending on how much you apply, you may get some little bit of shine on, like, I would guess maybe 4-ish out of the 40 colors in the essential set. But they all were mixed with the same amount of the medium to keep things consistent throughout the entire range. So, I mean, you can see like where it's dry on the wood, that isn't very shiny. So, but yeah, they're all meant and intended to be matte finish. And then here in the studio, we always apply matte varnish on top of anything, no matter what brand we were using. So even before we had these paints, we were using Vallejo. Even before the Vallejo, back when they were using Golden So Flat stuff, they put varnish on top too. So we prefer AK Ultra Matte here at headquarters. But some people like, you know, different finishes. But no, we don't have any plans for releasing like, you know, gloss paints or anything like that. But good question. I'm having to make sure it's not going to pool on the bottom. It was running between the neck there, so I had to go in and pull it out. You can see the paint that I had mixed is stretching all the way for the entire body that we needed. If I was doing the other side, then I would have just doubled up, I suppose. But not a big deal when you're painting directly out of the bottle. Obviously, you just drop some more, add some more water, good to go. There was somebody on the Kickstarter asked like a really in-depth question with some like pretty obscure brands of additives for like glazing or thinning. Again, this paint is literally built to exceed performance of other brands with only water. So while you can use whatever you would like, it is literally intended for just water. And if you are used to using a bunch of mediums or something while you work, I would just say if you back the Kickstarter and you get the paints, just give it a shot with water, and I think you'll be impressed. But there shouldn't be anything like super strange with most acrylic mediums and stuff that people use. So if it is something that you are super used to, don't worry about it. But it is purely engineered for water. You don't need any other products. Okay, so in our world of doing half of this, that's pretty good. I might mix a little bit more here. Not a lot, one little drop of paint. Brush full of water should get me where I need to be. Yep, looks great. I just want this to look a little bit nicer from literally just one angle, so I'm gonna go back here and add some paint. But good questions so far today. Again, if you have anything else, feel free to drop them in the chat. Spencer will relay the question to me so I can try and answer for you. Okay. If you would like to mute me, I'm going to blast him with the hairdryer again. So you can see pretty matte finish when you're doing this application. I had a little bit spill out onto the bottom here of the body, but that's okay. Okay, so while I make sure that the leaves are totally dry and I don't have to wait for that anymore, I'm going to go in and start darkening some of the other wood. So I'm going to grab our deep brown, wherever it's hiding from me. Let me see. Right here. Cool. Our deep brown is a cool tone brown. See that right here? You can see the contrast, though, that it was built with our brightest green on the leaves. A lot easier now that it's dry. Okay, we can get the deep brown going. All of these next applications are going to be to accentuate what we have already. So, pretty much the same ratio, water to paint. Typically 1-to-1. And the way that I do it is just with my brush size. So and I always use the same size brush typically, but if I have like 3 drops worth of paint, then I usually do like 3 brushfuls of water, and that pretty much gets me the same consistency all the time without too much trouble. Okay, so now I'm just going to start rendering in shadows on the darker pieces of wood by utilizing this paint. So wherever I think it would be darker, I'm just going to go in. You can see me now darkening it out. Do we have any new questions in the chat arena?
Just people appreciating paint.
People appreciating. Very exciting. I know that we were close to 55K. I don't know if we've hit it, but that would be 3 stretch goals, which is exciting. Okay, so I've added a nice shadow underneath that. So I'm going to go into top part here.
Close.
Very close.
We're 55. We're 200 away.
Okay.
55.
We'll probably hit that this morning easily. I had a feeling we would fund yesterday, no problem, so I'm very pleased about that. And I'm sure all of you are as well, because now the paint exists. And going in on the interior edge. Okay, so you can see I've just added more definition into those parts. I'm going to do the same thing on the back here. And then we'll start using some color to define things out even further. Probably like some purple, go in with some greens, things like that. And then I'm just going in with a wet brush like this to taper it. So there's no like harsh line in between the applications. So there we go, we added shadow there. Bottom leg. Or bottom leg, whatever. The shin.
It's like bottom tree trunk.
Bottom trunk. Whenever you're doing this style of application on your minis, you do want to make sure you apply primer though, because the paint is thin whenever you apply it like this. But again, we always, or I said primer? Varnish, sorry. We always recommend varnish. I'm going to use the same color too to shade the lighter portions of wood.
Oh, here, we got a couple. Oh, I'm so smart. I accidentally scrolled up on the chat. And
oh, we're at a delay. Oh, no. Okay.
Okay.
Ask
Sorry,
away.
everybody. Use your hair. Okay, so what thinner do you recommend for the airbrush use with the series? Water.
No, we don't want water through the airbrush. So you would want to use anything from like Vallejo thinner to, we use the Army Painter thinner and Flow Improver. Pretty much anything that is built for an airbrush will do it for you. The only reason I don't recommend water directly is because it evaporates through the airbrush faster, and everybody knows that's not what you want. So.
And then second question, was reactivation touched on?
Yeah, so it can't reactivate because it's acrylic paint. So reactivation for the first run of Army Painter Speed Paints was because of the weird formulation of stuff that they did. So this paint does not reactivate once it's dried.
And then we had a question about, I think we talked about this yesterday on stream, but just to reiterate, besides fluorescence, what other specialty / other paints do we plan on in the future?
So already we have a metallic set in the works and skin tone. So that would be on the immediate list of to-dos. And then obviously we plan on doing sets for like Rivenstone and stuff like that that would be themed for factions and the like. So.
And we're all caught up.
And we're all caught up. There you go. Like I said, this is a morning stream for us. So you can see I'm just going through. Anywhere where I want to taper the application, I just go back with a wet brush and I just push it around really quick. No problem. Doesn't do any T-staining or tearing, anything like that. And you can already tell all the definition I've pushed in. It's pretty obvious, so.
We've definitely talked about this one, but to clear it up again, someone asked, I hear from my brother that you can't lick the brush with these paints. Is that true?
No, it's not true. So again, it says on the Kickstarter page that they're non-toxic, they're vegan, they conform to all whatever standards. So when we sent out the test copies, we didn't have all of the info. So to be safe, because we were sending them out to our friends, we didn't want them to lick the brush, just to be sure. So that's why. But by the time people had tested them, we had already gotten back the results, and we informed people that they were fine, they were safe. We got back all the info we needed, and if you lick your brush, which is a very unfortunate thing to do that we do not recommend in general, no matter what paint you use, you know, you are okay, but it's still not a good habit to have. And I'm just going through, and you can see now all this additional definition that's been added in. Looks really nice. And I'll do the face here in a minute, but the face I'm going to do actually a combination of both colors. Put them down real quick so I can mix more. Heavy chonky boy. That's like 2 drops of paint. So I'll do 2 big brushfuls of water. There's 1. There's 2. There you go. Okay. So like I said, I'm going to try and mix the 2. So I'm going to grab this and this. So it's a little bit in between on the face because I wanted to render in the detail a little bit slower. So I'm going to do that now. And again, what I'll do is I'll apply it where I want it to sit, go back with a clean brush that is just wet with water, and push the edges of where I applied it, and it'll create a nice gradient without any real work or stress. So you can see that now. It'll dry really nice.
We just hit 55K.
Woo, 55K. Exciting. I don't know if that first update, she may have been waiting to hit 55K for the next update because we were so close. So otherwise, she will have another one up very shortly, one or the other.
We have a question. Are these paints like contrast speed paints or opaque paints that you're watering down?
So they are just traditional acrylic paint. So if you look at the Kickstarter page, you will see all of the work was done with the paints, and obviously it's not speed paint. But what we're doing today is a contrast application. The reason why our paints can do it so easily is because of the quality and the amount of the pigment that we actually built into the paint range. So there is so much pigment in these paints that you can utilize them in many different application styles and methods. You can also watch the application video on the Kickstarter page in that section about application. It's like 2 minutes and 30 seconds, so it's not a really long video. And you'll see me apply the paint directly on top of white primer, black primer, contrast application, and then what the contrast application looks like when it dries. So hopefully that will illustrate, right, what you can expect no matter what type of application you do with your normal painting. But today it was just purely to show people what you're able to do with completely like subtractive painting, meaning all you're doing is applying layer after layer. So you're not actually highlighting up. You're a reductive painting. Sorry, you're adding shadow as you go, which is what we're doing today. So the answer is they're kind of both.
That was from Tabletop Minions. Thanks for hanging out.
Oh yeah, what's up? How you doing, man? But yeah, so no, they're just super high quality acrylic paint. But as you can see, you can use them either way. So like the Death Guard minis on the page are painted in a speed paint style using the paints, and you can tell that one, the contrast and saturation is way better just because of what's built into the paints. But two, everything else on the page, literally it's a single solution to a lot of different problems. But of course, if you already own a bunch of products, use whatever you're comfortable with. But it's just another nice tool to have.
And then we got confirmation that Hannah is finalizing the Kickstarter update right now.
Who'd that come from?
From Sid.
Sid's in the chat.
Making people not eat their brushes.
Is she bullying people again?
She's
it's not bullying. It's not bullying.
The peace.
It's not bullying. Yeah, no. We just never recommend people like lick their brush in general. I don't care who, what, or why. I've never been that guy. So, all right. I like the way that we rendered out the face. Remember, I want to go back in with color on the lighter spots anyway. So let's do the top trunk, and then we'll keep on moving. We'll start moving on to the leaves. Good questions today. Keep them rolling.
I got a question for you.
Spencer has a question, everyone.
How are you doing?
How am I doing?
Yeah, you doing all right?
No one ever asked me that question. I appreciate that. People just assume that like I come in here being like carried on a palanquin by like cherubs every day, but I'm doing okay. My back is really hurt. I have an issue going on with my back, so that doesn't feel good.
But it doesn't stop them from painting this.
It doesn't stop me.
Miniature with a good attitude.
That's right. Positive mental attitude. Painting is easy. Don't compare yourself to others. Comparison is the thief of joy. You're all amazing. You can do anything you put your mind to through the power of positive thoughts and amethyst crystals that you charge under the moon. Maybe not the second part, but any day I can come to work with Spencer is a day that I can look forward to.
Wow. Thank you.
Wow, that's my buddy right there. All right, so we have rendered out the wood even further. Voila. So I'm going to mix up our green. We're going to go darker on the green. I'm going to skip this green. I don't really care. I'm sorry, green number 3. We love you. But we're skipping you because I want more contrast immediately. So we're going to go for green number 2. Ooh, this is a cool tone green as compared to our immediate warm tones. As you see, we applied green number 4. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper. I might add in a little bit of brown too. I don't know. We'll see what we do. But I'm not doing anything exciting on the palette cam, sorry. Not palette cam, but top-down cam for a minute.
Oh, we haven't seen your hat today.
Yeah, we have, right?
Well, you didn't announce it like yesterday.
Oh, sorry. We have a hat watch. I'm in the mom hat today. Sorry, guys.
Cool.
I always want to keep you up to date on the hat watch, so we know what's going on. That's not enough paint, but there we go. We did hot dog hat yesterday, right?
Yeah, it was hot dog hat. We had a question about shipping fees and stuff. Should I point them just to the questions, maybe? Perhaps would probably know this.
Do what?
We're simple painting folk.
Well, no. So the shipping rates are on the page. So unless you have like a weird shipping situation, those rates are all flat rate. So that's kind of the best part about what we're doing here is that other than someone that's getting like a retailer pledge, they are like there's no gigantic anything, right? It's not like forged. It's not like Rivenstone. It's just a box of paint. So all of those should be super accurate. They might, of course, shift a little bit back and forth, whatever, if the world kind of ebbs and flows and changes shipping situations. But yeah, what you're seeing there should be very, very accurate. That was one thing we were really excited about was, oh, the shipping actually is very easy to handle and figure out. So, and the volumes of our leaves here are in sort of these little round shapes. So I'm just going to do the edges and then taper them with the wet brush, and we'll see where we get. Really easy peasy, as they say, lemon squeezy.
That is what they say.
That is what they say.
When you say taper, it reminds me of a tapir.
Oh, a tapir? Yes.
Is that what they're, the little...
The animals with the snout?
Yeah.
Yeah, the little trunk.
You'll tapir.
I'm going to tapir the paint, yes.
Yeah.
More animal facts from our streams. For those of you that are on Patreon, you know, we love dropping the facts.
It's fun.
It is fun, says Spencer. Not to imply it's not fun.
Yeah.
From me.
Okay, guy.
Okay, sorry. My bad.
I think we went over this yesterday, but just to reiterate, will you be able to order paints off the website in the future in case you run out?
Yeah, so we will pretty much always be in production after the Kickstarter. So pretty much the Kickstarter pricing is you get a really good deal, and it allows us to get it produced super fast. And then because we're producing it super fast, even if you miss out on the Kickstarter, it shouldn't be that much longer, like, what, a month or two probably, to where you can just go on the web store and buy stuff as well. We aren't offering individual bottles just because of the speed and fulfillment of the production of the paint. So I can explain that a little bit further. I know somebody was kind of like not wanting to back the Kickstarter because they weren't able to buy a smaller set of just the primary colors. Totally understandable, right? Like, I get where you're coming from. The only reason we're not doing that is because when we produce the sets, if we were to break down one color of each hue to make a set like that, we now no longer have either individual hue sets from the production run or a complete box in general, right? Because we're subbing one color out. So in order to keep the prices down, in order to keep fulfillment really, really fast and production and fulfillment super easy at the same time, that is why we aren't offering that. I know that isn't the best solution for some people that just want to try one or two paints. But after the Kickstarter is fulfilled in July, right, we'll be able to throw everything up on the web store and you can buy one bottle, whatever it is you want to try, and it won't be a big deal. So I know it's not the best solution for some people, and I wish we could do it a different way, right? But this is also just the easiest solution for us to do a really fast, really simple production to get everything out the door. So hopefully that makes sense. If anybody that was feeling that way sees this, and it makes a little bit more sense as to why we chose not to. So, but we definitely talked about it, and that was sort of the conclusion we came upon. You can see still outlining every little volume here of the leaves, and then tapering my way with the wet brush.
Yeah, shout out to tapirs. Cool animals.
Actually part of the aardvark family.
I believe you.
Thank you.
Why would you lie to me?
Why would I lie to you? That's right. This is the correct attitude to have.
Like mini elephants, kind of?
Yes, they are like many kind of elephants. Kind of like mini elephants. We can put the inflection anywhere in that statement, and I would assume it doesn't change its validity.
We got Chris in the chat now answering questions that I'm not smart enough to answer.
What is he answering?
Shipping stuff and
Gotcha.
things that we just know how to paint.
Yeah, Chris was not here today, so I'm glad to see he's hanging out in the chat. But you can see it's really, really easy building up all your volumes here. Also looks really nice, very vibrant. Does it look good on camera?
I think it looks very swell.
What a supportive friend. Yeah, you can see now we're just moving into beautiful leaf land. I'm actually going to go in and continue to apply a little bit more to render out the same color. Because everything's still wet, it will just taper into the shadows as I continue to push it. think I'm happy with where it's at. So I'm going to use this same green now to add a little bit more interest into the wood sections, as if it's like some moss color variants. So I'm going to put it in between the sections there. And if you have any questions, anything like that, feel free to ask. We have plenty of people that can help answer.
I have another question. Is that okay?
Okay.
Is this thing, do you think it's like for goodness or for badness?
Oh, is the thing we're painting a good or a bad guy?
Yeah.
I would assume it's up to you. I feel like because of the color selection, he's probably a good guy today. Maybe if I went with fall colors and he had like red leaves, maybe he's a little bit more intimidating. Oh, maybe if you had like, I could have done cherry blossom version too, right? That would have been cool. Pink leaves. I feel like also a good guy. I don't know. Good question.
Tabletop Minions asked, would it work well with a white to black zenithal or maybe white to dark brown?
So, to answer your question, buddy old pal. So, if you're looking at all the paint jobs on the Kickstarter, everything except the Death Guard models were done on top of a zenithal. Obviously, with layering and stuff on top. I don't think you were here. Somebody asked the question earlier, and that's how Spencer and I paint everything. So if you're trying to do it sort of like covering a slap chop or just a zenithal period and not work back on top, I would just say go a little bit brighter, and that way you'll be able to retain the saturation of the color a little bit more, but it should work the same way. So I know that next week I think we're trying to do a stream with Will Hungerford, and he's going to slap chop a Ribbonstone mini using the paint. So we'll have someone doing similar application to what I'm doing now. Obviously, this is on top of white primer, so it's just different. But yeah, we do all of our base coating on top of a zenithal application. You can see the proof in the delicious pudding on all the paint jobs on the website, or sorry, the Kickstarter. But obviously, I go back on top and continue to render stuff out. So if you're trying to do quick and simple and not do anything on top, just go a little bit brighter and it will work wonderful for you. So hopefully that answers the question.
Had someone say they were sad that they missed out on Ribbonstone. Don't worry.
Well, I think Ribbonstone pre-orders are open right now, so you can just pre-order the actual MSRP stuff for the first delivery. I don't know where. I'm pretty sure it's on BackerKit maybe. I don't have the specifics of that, but I know that our pre-orders are open. So if Chris is watching, he might be able to drop a link. Or Sid, if she's here. I just don't know where that lives. I have been exclusively consumed with prepping for this Kickstarter for a minute. So you can see going in and adding the green, just adding variance and more definition to different parts of his body. Everything's still wet, but I'm just going in and moving and doing it pretty quickly.
Will the metallics be only metal colors, or will there be colorful metals?
So the first set that we're looking at is for sure like your traditional metallics that you would expect for most painting. So we aren't just making like metallic red, metallic green, something like that. We plan on doing it, but the first metal set follows our color theory that's built in to the essential palette as well. So we can give you warm and cool tone variations of metals, which is really exciting. I think people are very, very receptive to the color theory portion that's built in to the palette. I know when I was mixing it, right, the idea was it allows us, one, to give people like a really strong contrast building. I know we use that term for what I'm doing here, but your paint jobs are more dynamic by default just because of the color sort of differences that were mixed in. I know when I was mixing it, that was like the intention. So that way, if you only had this set, you still would get really awesome results. But in the future, right, if we have a cool tone red 0, we can release a warm tone red 0 as well, right? So that obviously doesn't work for every color, because how do you make a cool tone bright orange? You can't. But it does mean that that expands in that direction, and we're able to do that with things like our metallics as well, and skin tones. Anything else that we may release in the future can follow that same sort of built-in color theory, which is exciting. Okay, let's do this guy up here. But good question. Good question. And we should have the reveal very soon when that update goes live of our.
Should be happening very soon.
Yeah. All right, we've got that. So now I'm going to go in and focus more on our leaves once again. But looking cool, we're rendering it out really easily. At any given point, too, throughout this whole process, if you went back and did dry brushing, it would also start picking up details again. So really, the world is your oyster whenever you're applying color in this way. But I've got the definition I'm looking for. It's super saturated, really, really bright. Looks good. Let's see, we're right on time. Okay, so right in about an hour. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to grab one of my favorite colors in the set, green number 1. It is a cool tone green. It's really deep. Really, really nice color. Haven't used it yet. I had to break the rim on it. There we go. Excuse me. Okay, so I've got our deeper green. I'm going to start really getting darker with this cool tone. And this color isn't drastically darker than the green above it, but it's just a different color temperature, so it's going to give you a more pronounced effect, which is nice. Again, going back with just a wet brush to taper everything out. You can hear me tapping it on the cup. What's interesting too is I'm not a fan of dry brushing as a technique, and so this is how I would probably attempt to paint these leaves in the first place, is just continue to render it down and then go back on top at the end. I always do the volume 90% of a texture and then imply the texture for the last 10% of painting. That's kind of my go-to.
You don't want to individually render out all those leaves?
I mean, I kind of did that on the Archon paint job with all of his scales, and it took forever. So no, I unless I am being told in the future I have to do something like that, I probably won't. It just takes too long. I mean, the result looks good, but I also am convinced the result would look exactly the same if I did it this way. So
you just got a cool compliment, by the way.
A cool compliment. That can mean
Chad
anything.
Natty says, this is like watching Bob Ross. I thought you were messing it up, but holy crap, it looks awesome.
Yeah, no, I get that a lot. A lot of people say it looks terrible, and then, oh, it looks pretty good. No. No, it's kind of funny. Back before I started working here and I was running my own business doing like teaching, painting, and all that stuff, a lot of the patrons actually ended up loving whenever I would do a lesson that was really ambiguous for a long time and then came together at the last second. So people would like come in because all of the classes were live streamed. And so they'd hop in for a minute and they're like, okay, this looks weird, whatever. I'm going to go to the bathroom. They come back, they like grab a snack. 20 minutes later, they come back and they're like, everything has changed drastically. So, but yeah, you just sort of have to trust in the process, trust in the order of operations when it comes to applying paint like this, at least. And you'll typically get good results. So you can see just going in, rendering out the volumes even more, using our darker color. Honestly, I feel like I'm tapering more with this color than I'm like directly attempting to apply it. So that's really what's happening. But for contrast style application, I think this looks really good, right? I mean, that's the thing. If I did this in an hour and I was also doing the other side at the same time, I could probably have this entire thing done and varnished happily for game night within like 2.5 hours, and that's pretty good. I mean, I feel like that is definitely achievable for most people. And then the other thing you can do, so we haven't added any direct pigment to this entire paint job period. This is all just layer after layer after layer of washes. If I went back with our like green 3 and I stippled it in the cracks and everything like that, it would be immediately opaque and look like moss, and it would look really, really good. So
Haley asks, will this model ever make it to retail?
that's a good question. It's not a question I have an answer to.
I want to say, I feel like I heard Chris saying that they would like to get some of this stuff on the shop eventually. So.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time and our availability to have him do that stuff, so. Because I know that they've got a stack of these guys. I don't know if they'd ever be produced again, but I know that there are some extras that could hit the web store, but it's definitely a fun model. Really big chunker of a guy.
You gonna work out really hard from lifting it?
I feel like my wrist is gonna be weak all day because I've just been like tilting it up, and he is heavy. This is polystone resin. It's not traditional like miniature resin, so it is super heavy. But I'm having fun. I think it looks cool. You know, I'd planned on doing the birds, maybe like cardinals or different colors, whatever. I guess I'll throw some stone on top of the rock, and then that'll get us right at about an hour. We're just really kind of streaming for about an hour every time. So, good old rock color here. Get out of the way, big guy. So I'm gonna grab cool white and cool black. I'm gonna make a cool gray. Go figure, right? You mix those two. Now, if you were to mix the warm white with the cool black, you would still get a cool color. It just would be duller because they are complementary colors, or competing color temperatures is kind of the best way to think about it. It just wouldn't be as saturated with blue. But there is blue in the cool white, and there's blue in the cool black. I'll probably mix in a little bit of the brown too. Oop. It lost its collar. I'll just take this off. These can be thrown away once your paint's open, so if they fall off, they fall off for me. I don't really care to go and remove them one by one. All right, I'll mix these two. Get a nice neutral gray. That looks good. Or not neutral, but middle gray. That looks nice. Throw in a little bit of brown to make it look muddy. Still a cool tone brown, or gray, whatever the words are. As we're wrapping up, though, if you joined late, you have any questions that you might have that you don't want to drop onto the Kickstarter, please ask in the chat, and Spencer will check them for you. We've had a lot of good questions today. You can see I'm just going to apply this. These paints do work well for hard surfaces. Just make sure your surface tension is even.
Carl has an important question for you.
What's up, Carl?
He asks, how many hats do you own?
I own a lot of hats. I wear, there are quite a few that I wear to the office that also I probably couldn't wear on stream. I'm a funny hat collector. So I've got some cool haha hats, of course, but if I know I'm going to be on camera, there's a rotating stable probably of like 5 hats that I'll go through. But I'm also a hair guy. I know you guys have commented on that. When I don't wear a hat, you're like, what happened to the hat? So I just can't win with y'all. You just, look, it is hard being handsome. I get that. I experience it every day. But sometimes, you know, it's a hat day. Sometimes it's not. But don't clock my hats, okay? I don't want a running tab of, you wore that hat last week, okay?
I wear the same hat every day.
Spencer does. He is definitely in Sims mode when it comes to accessories. He has dedicated accessories.
Go Seahawks.
Yeah, go Seahawks. That's their
the war cry.
The war cry of the Seahawks. I don't know if you guys are soccer fans, but the Seahawks are the Seattle soccer team.
Soccer?
Yeah, they're really good at soccer and table hockey. It's actually, because we're not very good at sports in Seattle, it's 2 teams in 1. So.
Whoa. Bro.
What happened?
He's been here for a year.
I just got here.
We.
We?
Yeah, like we.
Yeah, we. Like we.
You do live here.
I live here. Yeah, you can't deny me that. We're gonna make them bluebirds. I'm gonna use Bluetooth.
Your old state stole our basketball.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Don't dox me. People don't need to know where I came from. I mean, a lot of people already know me before moving here.
School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, School of Hard Knocks. Graduated from Nunya Business. All that jazz. University of Nunya Business, yeah. Look at that brilliant bluebird with that simple application.
The update is live.
Wow, the update is live. Go check it out.
I had a button for alarms. Dude.
I'm pretty sure you will see a paint pack and a miniature. And, well, no, 2 minis in a paint pack. A Spencer paint job as well.
They're rare, but they exist.
They exist. There are actually a lot of Spencer paint jobs. More than my paint jobs, actually. I mean, that's just a fact, Jack.
A lot of random stuff.
Okay, so from the world of our single view here, look at that. We got rocks. We got some weakly shaded birds, but you can see the rocks look good though. Honestly, our paints do such a good job of not tea staining or like looking like hot garbage like a lot of contrast paint whenever you put it on a flat surface. So definitely always impressed. But I hope you guys enjoyed the contrast applications. No layering added. Everything was a wash. Giant forest dragon. Of course, one side, look, that's how we started, and now here we are. So if you think it's magic, you're right. You can't do this. Give up on it. No, I'm just kidding. Anybody can do this. It's super easy. Looks really good. I'll probably hit this side with matte varnish if I share a photo out on my Instagram. We'll share it probably on the Broken Anvil one too. And it'll look crispy beyond all reason. Of course, we're under super bright studio lights right now that are blinding me slowly, so I'll never be able to paint in a few years. But super, super thrilled that we also hit the 3rd stretch goal today. Hit them with that pretty face. There it is right there. Thanks so much, guys, for hanging out. We'll probably be here tomorrow. We have a Patreon video going live as well. We were sculpting wooden plank bases, so that video will go live probably at the same time as us going live tomorrow. We'll figure out something to paint. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest.
Quick.
Oh, we got a question.
We got a bunch of questions really quick.
Oh, okay.
Does the new Flesh Tone pack come in the Essentials palette?
No, it is a separate pack.
Where can we find the skin add-on?
It should be, if you edit your pledge, you will have it available on Kickstarter.
Is the new skin paint pack already included in the Essentials? I think that's
no.
The same question.
So it is all separate. So the Essentials box is its own thing. Anything added on top of that is a new box that you will get separately. So.
And we're all caught up.
Okay, and then back to it. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great evening. Find $20 in your pocket. Hope everything goes your way. Don't compare yourself to others. Have a great time. Painting is easy. Bye. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.